field feels really good.
Yeah. I love that. So gosh, we just kind of opened up the whole 4 different subject points. So welcome to this video, everybody. I think this might be working because we're side by side. We're going to try this.
Awesome.
Anywho, welcome to this video, everybody. This is Kandice, and of course, Carrie. We're going to play and just kind of share some of the synchronicities that we have and some of the things that we've been experiencing and witnessing in our own reality and other realities too. Because Kandice, you and I both do healing work, and it comes up. I mean, when I say healing work, we're always doing that, right? When we connect with other people. But one of the things that so there's a couple different topics. One was we're talking about that 12D shield in the heart connecting into the earth. So I want to talk a little bit about that. We did a couple card pulls, which I think are going to connect, which we don't know what we pulled yet. I know what you pulled, but you don't know what I pulled, but I think they're all connected. And then today's the 7th. So it's a 7/7, which is always, that's kind of what you were asking what I wanted to talk about. Like that's that portal day. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to connect in with the card that you pulled. And then the third thing was just talking about how things are shifting so rapidly. So those are a couple topics maybe to kind of, we kind of wanted to go over. And I'm still waking up. So.
Me too.
So we're just going to take a moment and just get really centered maybe. So we'll start off with that. Kandice and I had participated in a little kind of intentional connection into the earth the other day, and I thought that was really nice. And I think sometimes we get disconnected throughout the day and we get into a spin, and then it puts us into our heads and we forget that we always have that line, literally, of connection from the heart down into the earth, through the center. And we could call it the center channel. We could call it the center tube. I like to visualize fibers just kind of coming out of my heart, going down into my body, down through the floor, out of my feet, and all the way into the heart of Mother Earth. And I just visualize that as light streams. And we could call it like a fiber optic cable, right? And then as soon as I connect there, it's kind of like a boom. And I follow it. I bring it back up my body, up through my heart again, bring it up into my brain, all the way up through my central channel, all the way up to the heart of source, or whatever we want to label it as. And I visualize that as light too. And then I just kind of set my intention to connect both. And then I bring that back down all the way through the crown of my head, down into my heart again. And then I expand out the heart through my front of my body, the back of my body, the sides of my body. And I kind of connect all of that field like a toroidal spin. And that's kind of my little tool that I utilize. And it kind of helps me to get into my bubble, but also not be disconnected from that central source.
Well, that's beautiful. I like how you bring it all, you connect to everything and then you bring it all in. In a lot of exercises, they'll have you connect sort of like out to the center of the universe. And then, simultaneously, whenever I'm doing an exercise that's getting me to do that, I always feel like it's right here.
Yeah.
Like it's the, there's a connection to the hub, the heart, inside our heart, our hub, our little hub, so I like how that sort of like incorporates that.
I just like that the word that you're using too, because it's a wheel. It is a hub, right? Yeah. And it's that center spoke, and it's that energy. Sometimes that makes me feel when I connect out and I'm doing it too, I get almost a little spun out if I don't bring it back in. I just feel like it's not hard for me to do.
Yeah.
The earth. So I think that's really important. Maybe we should start with the card that you pulled, because
sure, I feel like that would be relevant actually.
Yeah.
Of course. So I'll just go. So this is the number 22 has also been, a pretty big messenger this year. Of course, we're in 2022. But it seems like that doubled energy has been really come up. Like it's always two doubled energy, or even two, the polarity, or so the amplification. So it says honor of the ancient king. Hopefully I say this right. Ingonyama or Ingonyama. And I'll start reading a little bit and see how far I get called to read. So the ancient king of the Zulu brings you an empowering message. You are destined to know and experience what it is to be truly empowered. Your voice, your courage, your wisdom, and your dignity can create considerable spiritual light, uplifting and inspiring others, guiding them from a place of spiritual truth towards the fulfillment of their own divine potential. If you have been doubting yourself or feeling unworthy of your boldness and of the boldness of your visions, you must allow your spirit to roar, for you shall conquer all obstacles and succeed in your heart's desires. So this oracle indicates awakening and the healing and strengthening of the divine masculine energy within the soul to take the initiative and to lead with wisdom. Healing of masculinity is relevant at both a physical and psychological level. To love and make peace with the masculine allows it to become dynamic and expressive of integrity, purpose, justice, and protection. Acknowledge your own power. Do not play small. Conserve your energy, get plenty of rest, but when the time is right, let your soul roar and your true voice be heard without hesitation or fear. You are a protector and leader of others. Allow your spiritual connection to awaken your courage and boldness. Refuse to be put down. Trust in the dignity and divinity within. So it's talking a lot about leadership and the natural positions of power. This is the spirit of the divine masculine actively expressed in order to right the wrongs of the world. The divine masculine potency within men and women defends the sacred feminine by putting in the energy, the action, and commitment required to bring her values to life. Divine masculine consciousness is essential for us to conquer procrastination, hesitation, fear, doubt, inertia. It is the power of the sword of discernment, integrity, strength, and honesty. And it is the ability to protect and defend what is worthy, which I feel like it, needs to be highlighted right now. It is not about dominating the world, but about moving powerfully amongst it from a position of inner spiritual connection to the wisdom of the sacred feminine that is always revealing the way. So this is this is a pretty powerful.
I know. And that's it, guys. We're out.
Yeah, that's it, right?
That whole reading, as you were saying inertia, I was hearing inner she and the inner feminine divine. And then you were saying there was another word, because part of that is about centering. So we don't get pulled up. We can move forward without getting sucked into that, it's that inertia that keeps us going. And yeah, worthiness and value is a constant. Ironically, as I'm saying that, I'm in kind of a weird flow right now. And I'm like, so that constant I'm hearing is that constant energy and motion. It's like keeping us moving forward and not getting stuck, right? And it's interesting because you're talking about the divine feminine. And I was just kind of updating some of the writing that I have been doing. And I was talking about the brain. And this is a little off topic, but it's relevant because.
Oh, it's right on. I feel like it's right on, right? When you're talking about masculine, feminine, you're talking about the two hemispheres.
Yeah. So ironically, I had just, yes. Okay. Yes. So we'll talk about that too. We're just going to roll with it. When we try to stay on point, it like never.
No, you just go.
Yeah, the points are pinging into all these different directions and subjects. So I wrote, I was writing about, I didn't realize this, and maybe you already knew this, but I don't know if it's dura mater or there's another word, but it means tough mother. I think I I'll have to look it up. But basically what encases the brain is called tough mother.
Wow.
One of the layers, there's 3 layers, which I thought was ironic because when I think of 3, I think of divine feminine, masculine, and inner child. But one of the main encasements that and I'm getting goosebumps, is called tough mother. And what I had been shown is that that's softening and expanding. So what's happening is a lot of our DNA and a lot of our brain patterns are shifting. And I think this is going to roll us right into talking about patterns coming up for us quickly and dissolving them. But I also wanted to talk about the lion that you pulled also has to do with that being brave, that cowardly lion, because it was pulling me back into Wizard of Oz in this writing that I did.
Okay.
The If I Only Had a Brain, and then the cowardly lion. Like we have these patterns that come up where we feel like we have to be on defense. But in actuality, what's happening is that merge and softening. And it allows us to kind of allow things to open a little bit more and not be so dominant on one side.
Mm.
And it's that heart brain. Bravery and self-worth is the heart connecting the two. And that's really what's so important always, but it's really coming up now for all of us, because that is what helps us to bring that divine feminine and masculine to hold one another, rather than this. And that's the value, that's the self-worth. And of course, the 7-7 with the lion is moving into, this is a 7-7 portal or opening from one perspective, maybe energetically, bringing us towards that lion's gate in the 8-8, which, oh my goodness, I could go into so many different layers. The double 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8. So we're moving into the doubles, the double numbers, double digits. And I'll just stop for a moment.
Yeah, it's just everything that you're saying is making me feel like we're just everything is lining up to come into a greater harmony and a greater equilibrium. So with the Trinity, the mother, the father, the child, or the feminine, the masculine, the child, whatever you like to say that as, when they're in harmony, they're all acting individually, but then as one, like in the card that which was just pulled, the masculine power is listening to the inner feminine, and the inner feminine is actually leading in the inner feminine wisdom as it just kind of comes out of the void in the moment as it's needed. And then the masculine power is in check and it's not dominating. It's just as it's needed, as it's listening, then it goes into action. And it's only exerting as much as is necessary to support and even protect and uphold this truly divine, balanced justice and law and order, in a sense, like it's innocent, it's pure, it's in balance. And now I'm hearing checks and balances.
Check
so
yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yeah, I was also getting like when it's out of balance, you've got the inner child that's almost coming forward to lead because the inner child does not feel safe. So when something happens, then the inner child energy is like exploding and trying to create that tantrum to draw the attention and steer the ship. And then you've got the masculine that's maybe pinging off of that and sort of acting out of turn, acting to dominate and control, to subdue and submit. And then you've got the feminine that might be acting out of harmony, that's overly emotional and trying to control and manipulate, like in that sense.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing how with the checks and balances, You take one step with the left foot and it immediately has to follow with the right. You cannot, it's like if you're one-sided or lopsided or out of harmony in one way, the check yourself, right? Like the checks and balances is coming to us through our own reality feedback immediately showing. Whereas if we're listening, if we're present, we're listening, what we need to address is really showing up in our reality so quickly to give us the opportunity to come into harmony. And it feels really, really, really intense. And if we don't listen and we try and fight it, or we are focusing on the negative aspect instead of the gift, we amplify it and we're sort of still going on the one foot, like we're hopping on the one foot. We're not putting the other foot down. We're not coming into that balance.
I love the fact that you're using that foot analogy, because it's that one foot in front of the other. You can't just I'm getting this picture of dragging the other foot behind, and that throws us off balance. And then when you're talking about the checks, that always brings me back into value. So it's are we valuing our emotions? And this is probably another video entirely, because I've been getting a lot of just information coming in about emotions in general. But I think it's important to talk about, sometimes we value that more than we value the logical, or we value the logical more than we value and I'm talking left, right brain, or we could say divine, feminine, masculine, or we could say, creativity versus, whatever we want to label it as, right? But neither one of them is more valuable than the other. They're equally important, because if we're walking around crying all the time, which isn't necessarily, sometimes we have to do that to process.
Yeah. It's a really interesting thing to think about and to feel as it's coming into balance within your own self, and really understanding your own body and its capacity and ability to process life itself and make process and make progress, real authentic unfolding process, real embodied progress, and we're just recognizing the different responses that you have initially, and how they're just facilitating fluidity in your being, and how when you are fluid and in the moment and present, engaged and intact in your reality, how you can just watch as a stimuli comes to you and happens, and as you let that roll through your body, you let yourself express. You don't hold in, you just let it all happen. There could be an emotional outburst, whatever, and then you just continue on. That's a very fluid way of being, and you're not shock absorbing, right? And getting knocked out of balance. Oops, I'm just gonna pause or mute myself for a second.
That's okay. I'll pause it just for a moment.
Just had to say good morning to my little daughter. And that's an example, right? Of life coming and you just addressing what comes, greeting it, and going with the flow. And in our society, one of the byproducts of progress, of modern progress, we had set up for ourselves in the last 100,000 whatever years, all these parameters of what it means to be a female, what it means to be a male roles, female roles, roles for children. And some of those roles have really served us for the time being in some form of learning or expressing or role playing. And then now there is a really interesting thing that's happening where it's the roles are sort of merging, and we're recognizing we're all those things in one, in a sense. We're still gonna have our roles that we play, but there's like an internal merging that's happening with all the different roles that we've played over the years.
Lifetimes.
Yes, sorry, lifetimes. And yeah, I'm getting so many messages at once, but it's like even all the archetypes, like I'm just being shown like everything's within us, and how sort of like singular, or I don't know if that's the right word, but like out of alignment we've been in like our in some ways being overly attached to one way of being, and being sort of segmented into certain ways of responding, that's really cut us off from the whole spectrum of our own self.
Yeah.
And has made us feel sort of like isolated in our own potential and in our own capacity as human beings. Like this is not some out there spiritual concept. It's like right in here, right accessible. Like I'm getting the crayon analogy again. Like we've got a box of we're a box of crayons and we've only been using 2 colors. Like
Yeah.
to really come into like a holistic understanding, not just logically, but like experientially within our own human being. Really understanding, and of course that's the know thyself, that's the know thyself, that's the know the beauty of the human body, that's the and it's really like set up already to have a beautiful fluid experience with life. And that includes when shit hits the fan, that includes when there's a death, that includes when trauma happens. We're capable, we're fully capable. And this kind of pings on the empowered card, right? Of becoming empowered and really aligned to taking that right action in our life moment to moment, and not being these flailing hot messes, which is fine too, right? That's like all part of that's all part of the experience.
Yep.
But I'm just like, there's a really amazing thing that's happening within a lot of people, where they're coming into a greater awareness, which also includes a greater wholeness of like what it means to be human. And you know, in the social political stage of our, you know, our dramatic social media, like
Jeez.
This is what's happening in the world. You can really see how it's almost like the reverse of what I'm talking about. It's literally the exact opposite of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it's like it's presenting the shadow of all these things. It's highlighting the amplification of everything that's been out of harmony with humanity. With, when I say humanity, like that's the masculine, that's the Trinity, the Holy Trinity, the masculine, the feminine, and the child.
Well, I always see whenever I say human or humanity, I only see it as color, like hue, a shade, a color. Like we are all the colors of the rainbow within this human body. I see it as human is light in form of man, in formation, in our formation of the color spectrum. And so when you brought up the crayon color, you know, the 2 colors, it's like we're just now becoming more aware of our hue, man. We've been very locked into that box of particular ideas, concepts, and I was just writing about expectations. It's like we're having these expectations based on, you know, only having this one idea or concept that's been, we could say, implanted or learned or whatever we want to label it as. Again, it goes back to the roles that we've agreed to play, as far as this is one way, this is the other way. But that and it's shifting so quickly. Not only are our bodies, I've got goosebumps everywhere. Not only are our bodies fine tuning, finding this new tune, tuning up to these higher harmonics, higher color variations, higher chords of sound. I just got so many goosebumps. That essentially that's happening so quickly that, and I'm seeing the picture of you that you used earlier with the feet, one foot in front of the other, like it's let go or be dragged. We don't want to just drag half of us. We want to bring it back into wholeness. And this is maturity. We're coming to a new stage of maturation, which also is saturation, which has to do with color schematics, which has to do with the new schematic, which has to do with how much can we hold, how expansive can we be? Not the old paradigm or idea or concept of holding space. We're literally creating space. We're not stuck in this container that we once were. That has opened like a flower. And we're adding petals to this as we do this. It's not like it's just one, here's our new reality, and this is the new form that you're stuck in. It doesn't feel like that anymore. But we are in the middle, from my perspective, of a transition. So as you transition from one frame into another, as you alchemize, as you transition into a different picture, as you see through a different lens, as you listen into the new lens, to the new harmonics, to the new harmonies, human, we start to come back into this different state of recognition, recognition, of vocabulary. And it's like it's all connected. And I'm hearing redirected. So this redirects us away from a new way, not like it pulls us into a new way, the new human, the new earth, the new age, all of this. And I'm really being called to just share, when we're sharing this with everybody. I know we've talked about this, but it's like, let go of this old concept, of this old package, of this old form, of this old information. And it's not that we're dropping our bodies and we're moving into just light. We're taking our bodies with us. So that includes the whole package. But we're newly.
Yeah, as you're saying package, I'm hearing like pack age, like the whole entire age that's been packed into one package.
Yeah.
Like this. And when you were saying away from, I was seeing that as like away, like coming from the way. This is away, like from.
Yeah. And a waveform, like a wave from, for me, is a waveform. Mm-hmm. So we're forming this new wave, and essentially it's us. Oh, and I was hearing like cellular parcels. So package always reminds me of parcel. So it's par, above par, it's like perfection. So it's another, because that's something. And that's important to just come back into, because wherever we're at, it's okay. This is happening. The biggest messages that I keep getting is we've gotten stuck in our head about this. And so if that tough mother is now expanding and softening, we're no longer stuck. It can feel foreign, right? It can feel. But the softer we are about it, the quicker these changes are happening, the easier it is to adjust in that moment. Like what you were talking about. All of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, I'm dragging my foot behind me. Catch up. Oh, okay, now or we might have to take a step back to let that other foot catch up.
Yeah, okay. So a big message that's been coming through for me in the last little while is like, having even greater acceptance with whatever dramatization or expression or experience that other people other than myself and my choice, have chosen to create and express in the world.
Yeah.
Like there's so many forms presenting and expressing, and it's like all at once. It's like there's so much energy and data that we got to get through in such a short time that it really sounds like a lot of sound, a lot of noise, a lot of like movement, a lot of projection, like it's ramping up. And like for myself, I'm like, that's crazy. Like I want that to quiet down. I want that almost to go away. I want it to chill out. So in saying that and expressing that, my guidance is like, you slow down, you chill out, you be the calm. If that's what you're seeing, that's what you want to be. If that's what if that's not making you go, oh, I want to add to it, no, then you play your role, you be the calm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that feels really good to me. I'm gonna just calm, I'm gonna hold space for everything that's happening, for all of it. So then it's like, okay, that's my choice. And then the guidance is like, okay, like when you see something that parts of you are offended by or uncomfortable by, have more acceptance, become a greater love, become a greater, like expand. That's that space. We're creating the space. Okay, I'm expanding in the space I can hold. Okay, like I'm just going to really calm down. I'm going to open my heart and I'm going to be here for whatever is showing up in front of me. And that might be frantic this, frantic that. I've been seeing a lot of really frantic people, a really frantic energy, that people that have almost been, they're not aware of it, like they're innocent hearts that have been really almost captured by their own minds and dialed up by this mental energy that's just taking them on this crazy ride, that's sending that signal through their bodies, and they're just like almost like electrocuted. So for myself, again, I'm like, I'm gonna be the eye for them. And that feels so good to me. And then, the other guidance that I was getting was like, all that you're seeing, all of that turned up really loud, is the agitation, the movement that's going to lead to that saturation point. So I love that you're going to like the saturation of the color, because that's something that's been coming through a lot lately, that is like saturation point. Humanity will reach a saturation point, and it is a huge call for my own self to come into like this greatest trust. Like, I look out, you look at the social landscape, you look at some of the, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I trust, like, this is crazy. This isn't okay. Next level of crazy. Okay. They're bringing it up another notch. And it's like, so I have to just, when I'm looking at that, remember, what is my choice? Is my choice to add to the crazy? Is my choice to go to the crazy and try and control it? That's that masculine that's like nervous and is like trying to dominate. You quiet. I'm gonna, no, I'm
Must control.
I'm not gonna go and roar and be like, listen to me. No, no. I'm not gonna yell that I'm the way. I'm gonna be the calm. That's the way that I choose. Like, and then allow and support essentially the reharmonization that's happening. And it needs to happen by creating the chaos.
Ooh,
and that's actually a gene key that I've been listening to lately is 50, which is a corruption leading to harmony, and corruption at the very base expression is literally just corrupt data. It's literally just a misprint. Like, you just wrote the wrong code in there, and it keeps trying to access it, but it's just not correct. So its programming partner that's connected to it is 3, moving from chaos to innocence. And that 3, we're talking about that Trinity again. And it actually is the code of the divine child. 1 and 2 being the masculine and the feminine, the 3 being the child. So it's like all of this childishness that we're seeing on the outside, external, the chaos that we're getting to see, is a great, huge invitation for so many of us to hold greater space, expand, and be that calm and command that calming energy in our presence.
Okay, so I just went so many places. My crown is like tinkling crown is a thing, by the way. So I'm itchy up here. But so you were talking about the corrupt program, and I hear core erupt when you say that. So it's like this core eruption. And what happens when there's an eruption? It has to settle down, and then beautiful things end up growing usually later down the road out of it, because it brings with it all of the nutrients, the sulfur, and it's poisonous at first, but then it settles in and it becomes one with its environment, because that's just how life is. But having said that, it also creates new islands and new plant, this is part of how we were, creation happens. And
I
you were,
love, I
yeah,
love how you said sulfur, like sulfur,
yeah, right?
sulfur. I love
Yeah.
that.
And well, it's so funny when you're saying sulfur, now I'm seeing it like in so many different landscapes, we'll say. But that corrupted program or that corrupted file, you're not necessarily going to throw out the whole computer, but you are going to get rid of that file. Now, I'm also seeing that as a recognition pattern. We're being given the choice point or the opportunity to recognize the patterns that we're seeing, not only inside of us, but we're recognizing them from a different level, from a different human, from a different standing point, and we're recognizing them, we're recognizing them outside of us as well. And that's giving us the opportunity to go into our hearts, find that coherence, create the long wave, and then ripple that out as often as we can when we are able to be in that space. Because this isn't like Kandice and I, when we're talking about this, you and I aren't always in that space. I mean, we have moments of uncertainty, of, like you said, it's hard to trust sometimes. It's like, and we can easily I'm getting goosebumps again on this, get pulled into that space of the creative chaos, or I'm hearing miscreation. It's creating something that we don't necessarily want to add to, because one of the things we talked about over the years is we're basically I don't know if I want to call it unraveling, but we are. All these crazy chaos knots that are not who we choose to be any longer are unraveling, but it's tangled right now. It's a rat's nest, but at the same time, it's corruption. It's not taking as long. We're not, have you ever tried to untangle a chain? It's all of a sudden, it's like, now all the pieces of the chain, and this also has to do with our DNA, are available. And it's like, oh, okay, this was inside of this was inside of that. And we're processing it at a much faster rate, which can feel hypersensitivity, hyper aware, hyper energized, hyper emotional.
It's working itself out.
Yeah.
It's working itself out. So it's literally working itself out, but it's working itself out on the outer, on the outer real, on the outer stage.
I know we have so many places we could have gone from there. And I'll just share too, if this is just on what we were talking about with this, what's going on outside of us. Because I know that you're more into the gene keys and the astrology. By the way, when you were saying the gene keys 50 and 3, I'm hearing 8.
Oh yeah.
The combination of the two, which is the infinite. And I'm all about the 8s and the 4s. I know there's other numbers, but 7 is big right now.
It really is. And I believe that I believe the 8, I think it's the diamond of the self.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Right. We're under this intense pressure to become the diamond of the self. So I keep being reminded, like, don't look at all that stuff outside as being bad for you. It's the acceleration point. And so if you don't need that to accelerate to the point that you need to, then be the calm. If you don't need that, then you're going to be retreating into yourself. And retreat, to me, like you're becoming a greater tree. The trunk is expanding. The roots are getting, we're expanding into a greater tree of our own being. So, You know, we might not necessarily need to play in those fields anymore. We're really finding our own place and where we belong. And it doesn't necessarily look like how I thought it would look a year to a year and a half ago. Really doesn't, you know? And that's okay. It's like that kind of humbles you and reminds you that is like, there is a greater plan. And it's not even the type of plan that we understand it as, like it's already been written and cemented and there's no fluidity and there's no movement. No, the grand architecture is from moment to moment constantly reassimilating this most beautiful picture, and story and dramatization,
Yeah.
of creation itself. And to really understand that, is to come into a greater trust and a greater acceptance and a greater allowance to be engaged and participate with life through this vessel that we get to experience.
Yeah. And it has changed so drastically, even for me. Well, a couple things. You were saying acceleration, and I was hearing celebration. Cell acceleration, it's celebration. The more we can celebrate where we've come from, how much we are expanding, it's happening at a cellular level. But also when you're talking about being present, being in life, there were two things that came up. Number one is, because, so I could go into so many different places, the messages I keep getting is DNA, cells, like everything is shifting within our bodies. I had a neighbor who was super on one track, we'll say. And but not really. So this person's one of those people that drives around with bumper stickers all over their car, which if you're one of those people, awesome. No, but they have a very strong like idea.
Yeah.
Although their bumper stickers would not necessarily suggest that when I speak with them. A year ago, I wouldn't say I would have avoided a conversation with them, but let's just say I might have avoided certain topics with them because I myself was recognizing that I was being pulled into and triggered by certain topics that this person is extremely passionate about, that I can respectfully agree to disagree. But we may not have been even able to have that conversation a year ago, where I could have said, I respectfully agree to disagree. But now I found what I did was I was really called to stand in front of this person with this person. And I'm going back to the long run. I think you said that earlier, like I'm thinking of that long wave. So I just sat and I held that space. I opened my heart. And I thought, how can I be really present in a place of trust, non-judgment, acceptance? Because I knew what this person was going to bring up. And sure enough, they hit every topic in 30 minutes because you had brought up they're in their heads about things. And people don't realize this individual thinks they're really open and they think they're really doing the right thing, but they are so opinionated. And so it was really fascinating. But they were accusing others of the same thing. The reason I'm bringing this up is in this moment, I had this opportunity just open. And all of the triggers and all of the expectations, I just kind of let them all go. And my response to each topic that they brought up and they fired them at me, I said, I tend to be a little more optimistic. And that triggered them because they were like, okay, well, you still have to be educated. And optimism only gets you so far. And I was like, whoa, was not expecting that. And that was really fun. I was just like, ooh, okay, wow. How can I shift this now? Because I did shift it, but it triggered them. So I thought, okay, I said, you're absolutely right. And I am really fascinated by, what I did was I brought up subjects about, let's say, the climate. And I talked about this, mushrooms, cleaning and spores, kind of cleaning radioactive energy at Chernobyl. such a random topic, right? And it threw them off there, and they were just like, what? I was like, wouldn't it be amazing if, like, in the next couple of years, all these great minds got together and started having these conversations? I just think it's beautiful that we're talking about this. And it was just funny to watch. Just by, I didn't change the subject. I brought in what I was optimistic about.
Yeah, it seemed like you were able to create open avenues. It's almost like you opened some windows in the house and like the air got in and the you know, it's like, oh, what is that fresh air? I can smell that. You brought that home for me. You've opened my windows and I'm like, kind of like
Yeah.
that. I don't mind that. That's not so bad to open that up there.
It's almost like I could feel the light bulbs kind of, and then they would bring it and they changed the subject to something different that I would have used to have been triggered by.
Right.
And I
Well,
was
and
like,
it's kind of like somebody who's like, when you said opinionated, I almost like the opinionated,
yeah,
like I'm pinned down and you're open. So your pin's out. You know, you're not pinned down by anything. You allow yourself to remain open so you can experience you could take on that view for a moment. Like, this is something that I like to do. Like, whenever I have clients coming and bringing me information, for a moment when I'm talking to them, I clean my slate.
yeah.
I'm almost like a nothing. So, and then I'm just there present for whatever their reality is. And I almost take it on as my own in a sense, just feeling it. And then there might be some feedback that comes. That's particularly for whatever viewpoint is pointing at me. I'll just become a response for them, an open, neutral response.
Yeah.
And then I learn something through that, becoming completely detached and not holding any position. And it becomes playful and it becomes almost like a grateful exchange, because they may not necessarily have known that they were bringing something. Because whenever we're really focused on a topic and we keep bringing it out to whoever we meet, we're actually honestly looking for solution. And I almost said salvation. We're like, we want to be rescued from whatever's like been possessing our mental space. We're possessed by an idea, by a topic, by something that's bothering us. And we're going around looking for the solution. We're trying to solve it.
Yes. And some of it is wanting to be validated, right?
Sometimes,
and wanting to be right. But I do feel it is more of a solution. I love the fact that
subconsciously, you know, it's like
the ego wants to be maybe validated, but on a deeper level,
that's
not what it's
to
about.
Rest in peace. It wants to rest in peace, right? It wants to be put to sleep, in a sense. That idea wants to be completed or propagated, like on the unconscious level. I almost see it like spreading a virus, like they're like mind viruses and frequencies. And like, if we go into Dan Winter, it's like propagating ideas and waveforms and broadcasting signals. And, the more pure, the more pristine, the more, like, I want to say like holistically attuned the signal that you can send, that you can broadcast, the further it actually reaches telepathically, energetically. It's a long signal that can just go and go and go.
So that holds a harmonic,
yes,
right? And it's a tuning fork, right? So in that example that I was using with him, I could have been defensive with my own opinions and views. But it's like you said, you just open yourself up like you're a clean slate at that moment. And it's just like, I'm just going to allow myself to be present with who this person is behind their opinions, because he's a beautiful, beautiful soul. And I just felt, boy, this must be exhausting, right? And I just was like offering an opportunity just to connect at that moment. And that becomes that heart-brain connection of just sending out that wave, like what you're talking about, and allowing things to ping. It was so, like you said, you almost walk away. I don't know if you used the word grateful, but I felt full of gratitude after that exchange, because it became less of this, And he even was at the end was like, I'm so grateful that he didn't say grateful, but I feel so glad that we shared this conversation. I can't have these conversations with other people. I didn't really agree with any of his opinions. I just agreed with the fact that he felt a certain way. And I allowed him to feel that way. And that's part of what we're doing, like you said, propagating that wave. It
And
becomes non-destructible, right? Or it's not destructive, it's
yeah,
constructive.
and I feel like you were just holding this space or expanding the space of acceptance, which has been the huge message for me in challenging situations that I feel like I can't accept. Like there's been certain things that I feel like I can't accept, and
Yeah.
I want to go and fight and defend. And whenever I feel like that, I'm like literally almost feeling like a tap on my shoulder. Like before you run in there, sit with it. Look at where's the gift here in this whole entire situation? What is it showing you? Do you trust in your own reality, universe, self? Do you like tolerance to diversity, and like you preach about unity and diversity, but like what if it gets really diverse? Like what if it gets
Ooh.
really, really diverse? And what if that diversity wants like there's so many opportunities to really truly practice, and it almost in a way forces, and I force is a strong word, but it kind of does force. Like it's causing an effect. And what's the effect on me? Slow down, become calm, create a greater presence of yourself. That's literally what it's making me do, in a sense. That's my choice, because I don't want to be pulled inside out. I don't want to be pulled out into action in that way. This is my action that I'm taking, is becoming a greater beacon of that which I want to see in the world. It's really challenging me, because it's showing me what I want to see. And then instead of trying to force other people to do that, I'm having to become more of what I want to see in my own self and in my own body and my own words and ways. And it's like a great teacher.
Yeah. And when you said force, by the way, I'm just hearing that word has been perhaps, again, the attachment that we have to the outcome or the meaning of that word. And let's just say that pings in our mapping system, that when we hear that word, we think, oh, resistance maybe, or force. I always hear I am the force because I am the Jedi. And then I go back to Dan Winter. He talks about the Jedi raising the Jed. And it's literally like we're part of that force. We aren't like, we're utilizing the spirit that moves in all things, and the indigenous people call it, the force, the Jedis call it, but that is part of our energy in motion. So I think it's really valuable. You keep saying choice, and I've been saying choice points a lot too, because this is a point where I get to choose how I respond to whatever it is. And I don't always make the right, I want to just kind of play with that a little bit, the right choice. But in that essence, that it's always bringing something to me, no matter what choice I'm making, that I can then.
Sorry, I can't help, like there's always an inner dialogue, right? And as you're saying, the choice that I'm making, like a thing that I used to say when I would make videos is like, I am a choice that I have made.
I love that.
I'm a choice. I'm the choice that I made. And so the right choice, like when you were saying that, I was hearing, I am the right choice. Yeah. So I am the choice that I've been made. If I'm the right choice, I'm choosing myself, and I'm choosing to just truly be.
Yeah.
To really be. And which means there isn't necessarily a wrong choice, because if you're present, we've chosen to be, we've chosen to exist. No matter what we're choosing, no matter what we're doing, our choice of existence creates value intrinsically. It's just constantly doing that. It can't help it. Just like nature, it's like our own design is to create value, and we just have to be open or present to receive it. And sometimes that's an afterthought of the wrong choice, of the experience of the wrong choice, which means acting out of alignment from the true place of our being, perhaps being distracted or like tempted into a delicious situation of drama and confusion, right?
Yeah.
But then as we come back into the choice that I am, that we are, that we've made, there's value, there's dialogue, there's realization, like it's juicy, it's delicious. It's like this brilliant co-creation. And it always is. And we can always come back in and come back home.
Oh my goodness. So as you're saying that, it's like ping, ping, ping. So you're saying choice and, that juiciness that, we might be tempted, but we crave different things when we're in alignment, right? So we don't necessarily crave the same, defensive, like, oh, I'm going to fight my, I'm going to fight my way through this and prove my point, because that's our point. That's our choice point. That's our ability to choose right then and there where our point is, what we're pointing towards, and where is that pointer coming from? Where's our projector? Like our laser beam, right? Like, I'm going to point at this, but why don't we just open that? I've got goosebumps everywhere. And then that comes into, oh my goodness, everything that you said, it was the same thing I was hearing, like the voice behind the voice. Like, and so I was also getting reference to cortisol. So when we're in that heightened space of, and it's not the wrong choice, it's the choice that we're making in that moment based on the frequency that we are holding, right? And we have the freedom to, like, oh boy, just went into poof. But that is literally connected to our taste. Our taste buds. I know, like, we need like somebody to put like a brain scanner on us when we're having these conversations, and then pull out all the other conversations that are coming in, and then put that into an out.
Well, it's just like, oh my gosh, it just, for us, it's highlighting how amazing creation is and how amazing our bodies are, and how there's just so many connections. Because if we go into taste, and what that means, and like the feedback that we get from that, and it's just, the Mandelbrot set, the Brahmin that you can zoom out forever and zoom in forever, and there's this fractal, like we are that fractal. And you go into even one of our taste buds, and I love how it's called a taste bud. Like, it's like we're just like we're buds, we're like a trillion buds.
I think I might have posted one time a picture of taste buds. They actually look like roses.
Wow.
They look like rosebuds on it's kind of crazy.
And budding, like, I know that there's like a physics thing, like Dan Winter and implosion and budding and the tulips kissing, and like we're an incredible fractal of the expression of the brilliance of the universe in every single tiny little aspect that we are. We're an amazing creation. Yeah. And it's so beautiful and profound, and then at the same time so silly. Like, there's so much humor and play injected into all of it too. Like, it's funny and amazing. It's hilarious and awesome. Like, just so incredible. So, another message that's always present is like, play with it. Like, seriousness really locks you into just one side of the game. And like, you could say that seriousness could be, well, there's a masculine and feminine version of seriousness. Women can get really seriously locked into emotional signals, and men can get very locked, like, of course the lines always cross. Yeah. Right. Whenever I like women met, like, and that's,
oh no, something. I can be very like hard, like very rough sometimes, and abrupt.
Yeah.
And because I'm in that space of leave me alone, I'm trying to focus. Right. And then I'm like, but that's a choice point too. Yeah. And then we recognize in that moment, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
But I wanted to tie it back in with what you were saying earlier about the choice points and how quickly we were talking about how things are happening. it's almost like I'm feeling into that now more a little bit. I mean, not always. Sometimes I react and then I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, like to my husband, sorry, babe, I was in the zone, not necessarily the zone of being aware of the zone. I was in a zone, not necessarily the heart zone. But having
Yeah.
said that, it's we're recognizing it, I think, a lot faster. And so in that moment, I can choose to react, or I can say, oh, I'm in the zone. And I can say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm in the zone. Let me just kind of read, and then it gets to the point where you're in the right zone, but it's not the wrong zone, right? We're not right. We're all at different angles.
Yeah.
But then
And
it becomes more of that fluidity of, okay.
coming into center and allowing yourself access to all the zones, right? Because like all the different zones of the circle, we might be quartered off into one space, and then that brings us back to lest your eye be single. Jesus would speak about, the whole being like being full of light and becoming one I am. And it's like all that universal fractality that you have in every single like point of your being, bringing that all into one harmonized choir. Like you are a choir of cells, of like cellular reception and information and sound. And it's like being able to bring that all into one. And so I'm saying bringing that all into one, but what I'm really being shown is like coming from that one point and expanding out, which is like that budding flower, opening up into that flower of light, that flower. You're in flow, and your cellular reception is really clear and profound and pertinent in your being. And you're able to intercept all the signals from every area in that great reception of calm that you are. And so, we're noticing more and more when we're not that, when we're closed off. And then, when we're not that, it's like, oh, I am that. Okay. It's just open. It's open. Be pinned in, and it's not a bad thing if you are, right? It's not, when you see from that point, the one point, the I am point, you're able to forgive and not judge and whatever, because you're like, oh, I've just been in a way I could say this, oh, I've just been using my equipment wrong. I didn't know. I did not know that I could use it this way.
Yeah.
And like, oh, that feels really good. Oh my goodness. Wow. Existence just is so much more tolerable. It's so much more tolerable to exist in this strange human experience when I'm using my equipment and my existence the way that it was intended to be. It just creates an even more pleasant experience, and kind of being drawn back to this card. It's like, so that's really becoming empowered, and your voice, your courage, your wisdom, and your dignity can create considerable spiritual light. So it's like when we come from that place, we light the way, wherever that way be. Like we'll find ourselves in some crazy situations. We're not afraid. We're not expecting outside to look like the inside. We've now recognized, oh, okay, the more I see crazy, the more I be sane, the more I be calm, the more I be clear, the more I be love, the more I be light. And it turns love and light. Everyone loves to run around and say that, but like, we don't even need to say that anymore, because you are that. That becomes less of saying it to try and create it out there. It becomes more. So for myself in the last while, like that flashlight that I've been pointing out has really been pointing in and cultivating in the spaces, and whatever comes to me, I'm really using it to open. And I want to read this last little bit of this card because I keep getting,
pings.
I want to say it. So the Oracle of Ingonyama brings you lion medicine. Lion is an archetypal energy of raw power, strength, and fearlessness. Lions carry powerful energy for those that need to be seen and heard in positions of leadership. Be fearless, and as you trust in the spiritual power, which is certainly more than enough for any divine purpose that needs to be accomplished. Express your true voice and affirm your intentions. The voice of the Spirit is louder than any other voice within you or around you. And I'm highlighting that for us, Carrie. It is the most powerful, the most far-reaching in impact, right? That pure wave propagates infinitely outward from within. So the most far-reaching impact, like the roar of the lion. So feeling that roar from within us, feeling that mighty roar, like right now, I'm inviting us all to feel that coming from right in our hearts and sending those shivers of realization through every cell of our being, letting your spirit and your soul roar like powerfully, I am here. This spiritual voice speaking truth will be heard and take effect, casting off any darkness seeking to impede your purpose and the purposes of those that you love and protect. There is a time and a place when the feminine must come to the forefront, and likewise when the masculine is required. This is not necessarily about men and women, but more about the masculine traits within both men and women. This is a time when you are asked to utilize masculine traits for best success. The feminine will then be able to flourish. The masculine traits include discernment and decisive action, creating order and clearing away what is no longer effective and allowing for the new to emerge from the space created. It may seem that you are being held to a higher standard than others. This is because you have greater potential to evoke and affect. Higher standards of inner accountability form a spiritual safeguard, so that power, which is so easily corruptible, is expressed in a way that increases light by serving the Great Spirit, rather than our own, even well-meaning agendas, right? Opinions that we are trying to propagate. Ingonyama also brings the message of wise cultivation of energy. Lions can rest for 24 hours a day. When they need to act, they do. They also take their share of the food available without apology. If you've been associating leadership with overwork and have sacrificed your needs to fulfill the needs of others, do away with that. In your well-being, strength, and dignity, so much more shall be accomplished. Those that are here to love, guide, and protect will feel faith in their path all the more so when their guide expresses and embodies divine love and wisdom with kindness towards all, including compassion and respect for the self.
I love that. Can you show the book, who, like the
yeah.
author and all that, so people can see it if they're watching this?
So
And that's so good.
Warrior Oracle,
yeah,
by Alana Fairchild.
I think my friend Kat has that journal. Actually, that same cover. That's hilarious.
Such a beautiful,
it's so pretty
deck. And Alana Fairchild, I think she's got many decks. They're all just full of profound wisdom from all of the different cultures, faiths.
So well spoken. And you were talking about propagate. I was hearing propagate open, like don't close the gate, propagate.
I love that. I love that.
It's like I hear all these, and then that's kind of what I'm back into the beginning of this conversation. That's where I'm seeing this is headed. Like this is that portal. We're propping that gate open and we're walking through. And like you said, it's almost like this need to be responsible because we are, I don't know how you just read it exactly, but it's like, yeah, we have to be responsible for our interactions with each other and ourselves. And it's like, don't be looking back. Like I want to go backwards. I mean, granted, we all do that from time to time, but it's like, we're in this now. We're in this now.
Mm-hmm.
So where are we creating from? What are we propagating? What are we holding the gate open for? And moving towards. I mean, that's such a nice deck.
Mm-hmm. And it's a big call to us to come into that maturity. And ironically, it can't be forced in a way. It's like when you're ready, you're ready. And anyone who's watching this video, wherever they're being called in their life to come into a greater awareness of self, like when you're being triggered by the outside, if you're being called within to be what you want to see in the world. Like say something's triggering you and you want to force that to stop, or you want to force it, whatever you want to force outward, we have to put that back on ourselves and ensure that, like, use the force, that we're using that productively where we can, which is with us, right? Which is with ourselves. It's a greater calling to a higher accountability level. Some of us are being called to a higher level of accountability. And that is just because of the timing, right? Time's up for some in your incubation period, and you're coming into a greater level of maturity, soulfulness within your own self. And that just is what it is.
I won't go into as much as I want to, because I know we're going to be probably running out of time here. But when you said incubation, it always takes me to octopus. And I just wrote about the octopus. And how many hearts do they have? 3. I think they have 3 hearts. Or is it 3 3 brains and like more hearts?
I think there's like
5 hearts,
8 or 10, or
we're gonna have to look, but
3 hearts.
I should know. I kind of forgot, but the octopus has multiple hearts and multiple brains, I'm pretty sure. And the reason I'm laughing about this is because you're talking about coming out of our incubation. And I was seeing, as you were speaking, it's hard to describe, right, what we see sometimes because it's so multidimensional. But I was seeing, first of all, using the force, like what would Yoda do? But I was seeing the Yoda that's in the forest, not the Yoda that's fighting with the sword, which is required of us sometimes, right? We have to sometimes say no and stand up for our families or ourselves. But there's also this element of, once we work with the force and we change it, everything else changes from that. And like you said, coming out of incubation then brought me into the ping of past, present, and future. And then it brought me into overwriting ink, the codes that have been corrupted, which then brought me into the multidimensional aspect of tapping into all aspects of our brain and the many aspects of our heart. I keep coming back to that because it's so important. And we are the ones writing the codes. So we're coming out of this incubation to then go into creation, because we're making these choice points, right? And then we're creating from there. So it's almost like we're being called to action. And so the more responsibility, the more we, it's not just about the ability to respond, it's how are we using those abilities? Where are those abilities coming from? And I mean, there's so many layers here, right? Just from that one reading that we could go into. And yet there's just the one, the eye, the heart, the center, the bud, the long wave, the fractal. That is all one, but it looks very different when you zoom out, but it never ends. So it's like we could just wrap it up and say that's really what it's all about, but we're humans. So we have different colors all wrapped up in the skin suit, and we're going to see things through different lenses and different angles and different, like that triangle. Sometimes we're going to see more blue. Sometimes we're going to see more red. And we're going to feel that at times too. And that's one of the beautiful things, is to feel all of it. And that's that roar.
Yeah. Feel line.
Okay. And I'm going to say one more thing on that note. You said feline. And I'm going to just, I wanted to share 2 things. Let me just pause for just a second. Okay, so I'm back. So I just paused it for a moment. We were checking in on time. We're going to go about 15 more minutes. But the funny thing is, we have so much to share that we cannot share it all in one video, and we probably cannot share it in infinite numbers of videos. So we're going to do a video separate about what I'm seeing with the octopus and the lion in the DNA. So that's to be continued. But I'm going to run out real quick. Kandice, I'm going to let you kind of share that second card that you pulled. And then I'm going to come back and share just a little bit of what I'm getting about Pisces. And again, I'm not the astrological I am a Pisces, but which is interesting because you're a Leo and you pulled the Lion card. So that's kind of
Right.
funny, right?
Yes.
And then I'll kind of share. So I don't know if this is going to ping off of your cards at all because I pulled these before we popped on, but it was water your garden and activated earth. So
Ooh.
I'm going to come back to that in just a second, and I'll let you kind of share the card that you pulled in with yours. I'll come back in just a minute. I'm going to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
I'll just keep
definitely
this going.
feeling.
Maybe my
Definitely
dog will be
feeling
back
that.
there.
Okay.
You can talk to Hobie.
I'll talk to Hobie. Okay, Hobie. Definitely feeling that water your garden, right? It's like that external force that we want to exert on the world in the way that we want it to be is like turn that around, put that water in your own garden. So the second card, so it's like I've got the masculine and the feminine here, right? So this one is honor of the ancient king, and then this one is Nana Balaka. She rests to create. Pictures on the card are so amazing. Okay. She rests to create. Your energy is a precious resource, and there are ways of being that can enhance it, amplifying it, and replenishing it. Give yourself sufficient rest, and you shall find the way forward more effortless. Explore the lifestyle that grows your inner resources rather than requiring constant exertion and exhaustion to accomplish an endless list of external pursuits. You need this shift in being now because you're ready to accomplish more. For this to take place, there needs to be less effort and more wisdom. Trust and value what can be accomplished through rest. So I feel like this is another message that's kind of elaborating from the first card, the lion that rests and only uses that energy when absolutely necessary. So this is another message of that from a feminine perspective.
Yeah. I didn't hear
So
what the card, what was the card? The name or the picture of it?
Yeah. Oh, so here it is.
Ooh.
And it's she rests to create.
Ooh. Oh, wow.
So
That's
all
so
about
crazy.
our energy being a precious resource. So it's saying, and this is a shorter card, you have more than enough energy to bring to life the sacred visions held within your heart. An increase of energy and peacefulness is indicated. You are guided to choose high energy people, places, and purposes. This does not necessarily mean that which is highly stimulating. Rather, it refers to that which regenerates you with peacefulness and joy. Give generously to yourself to be able to give generously to others. You have unusual ideas or ways of being that suit you but may not suit others. Work with what works for you best without trying to force yourself to conform. This brings well-being and creative success.
Okay.
So this is Nana Balaka is the African grandmother creatrix, the supreme feminine creative principle. She created the universe and then rested. The intersection of rest and extraordinary creative power is repeated in numerous spiritual traditions from varied cultures around the world. It is also repeated in the lives of inspirational innovators in very varied fields of discipline, from the sciences to the arts. When you are boldly ambitious and creatively confident for the fulfillment of your life purpose and heart-inspired plans, it may seem that rest is the last thing you have time for. There's so much to be accomplished. Yet the conscious use of deep rest allows us to connect closely to the divine creative genius. Taking time for renewing stillness can allow us to work smarter rather than just always working harder.
Okay, so I do see how that's tying. I mean, I feel like there's a couple things that I'm sensing when you're just sharing these cards is don't burn the candle at both ends. That's a big thing, like especially right now. So this is something we can kind of maybe end on, but we felt, I know you and I have, and I'm sure everybody else has, the energy's really ramping up, right? So from my perspective, and I think both of ours, if I may speak so boldly, roar.
You may. You
Um,
may.
It's like almost like it's just continued to go up, and we're just adjusting. So now we're at a higher, but we're still in that space of learning how to operate in this new level of awareness, sensitivity, whatever else, connection to everything. And so if we're not taking that time to recharge our batteries, then we're going to burn out. And what I kind of am seeing is that we are in this portal. So what we're taking with us into these, and I, even when I say portal, people I think have a tendency to think, oh, I've got this limited time in which I can do this. And I don't see portals as that way. I see them just as opportunities, like in a video game, to kind of reset or jump up to the next level. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it at a different time, because there is no time but it's helpful sometimes to utilize the extra tools that we've got in that particular phase of the game, or whatever we want to label it as. But when you're talking about all of the rest, I had pulled activated earth and water your garden, which is the same idea. You have to water the garden in order for it to grow. And the earth is getting grounded. And ironically, I got another water card, which is Pisces. Probably has something to do with what we're lining up with. We're not obviously in Pisces, but we're moving into fire. So we need that water to kind of, that feminine, right? That to balance that out, and hydrate is obviously very important right now. And as I look at this, my eyes were they adapt to any surroundings and are loyal, which Leo is as well, which everybody can be. It's not, but it's talking about Pisces are known to help others at their own expense. And you read that in the first card, which was, if you're used to doing all this stuff for other people, you have to, the lion takes what it needs with no apologies. So it's, again, not letting other people's needs come before ours, because then we burn the candle out at both ends. Then we aren't able to fully support our children, our spouse, ourselves, whatever it is, our job, whatever it is we need to focus on. And also it's talking about the dominant chakra is the third eye. And Neptune energy, the key phrase is I believe. So believing in ourselves, finding that worth. I believe I am valuable. I believe that what I'm doing is it's just that belief in ourselves, I think, is so key right now. And it's also talking about Saturn energy and the foot and earth star chakras to help balance out that, which is, I think, so key to ground, right? And to find that stability. And it's talking about weaknesses are kind of what we were talking about earlier: oversensitivity, over emotions, indecisiveness, escapism, running away. I don't ever do any of that, but basically trust. Don't worry about how or when your desire will come, what things look like. And it's just basically, this is the dreamer, I believe. So when I look at this card, I also see it as hydrogen. I know this is not what it is, people that do astrology, but for me, that's hydrogen. I just see it as an H. And I know that's just the representation on this, but I see it as the hydrogen. So I know that we're going to have a lot of solar activations coming up. We are already having them. So we have to balance that out with water. And that's the fire side and those two sides. So that's how I see that.
I like how you laid that all out. And Leo is also the sun, the solar plexus.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. So, and then water your garden is kind of obvious. I think what that means, right? But of course you have to water your garden for it to grow. But activated earth also came up, and this is talking about sustainability, which we've been talking about.
Yeah. And the sustainability that comes from, like, as within, so without. So sustainability mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, tangibly on the outside, physically, tangibly on the inside, right? It's like that fractal again that keeps going forever, and sustainability through all the layers of experience.
Mhm. This is talking about not racing through life. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just give in a nutshell. Basically, put on the brakes, give yourself enough time to recover, that 24 hours if you need to. Wow. So this is kind of when we are getting this big of a connection on, we always have the similarities, but I'm getting goosebumps everywhere. Like something, now I could be very like project here and say something big is about to happen.
Yeah.
Because this is a pretty big message about our physical bodies. Now, I'm inviting everybody that maybe is watching this in the future. From one perspective, we could look at it and say, what's about to happen? Get into that place of fear, or maybe this is about to happen, or maybe that. But on the flip side, and that's an opportunity to look at where our choice point is of how we're reacting and how we're viewing things. Are we viewing them from a place of reactivity and fear? The other perspective is, I'm hearing the optimism, like, ooh, we're about to get some downloads. We're about to get some upgrades. We're about to get some more activations. It's already in progress. But how we take care of ourselves will determine the progress that we will make as a human, but as a collective as well. And so this is basically saying, give yourself some time. Don't run into the reserves. There is enough time. Life will bend towards you when you do. What is your body yearning for? And you're being called to take responsibility for your well-being, to put your health and body first. That's so interesting. And then the activated earth is also what we're talking about, because the earth is also going through this. As within, so without.
Seeing the earth as part of our body. You could say our greater body, because without the earth, we don't have us. So the earth is an extension of our own health and well-being, and starting to see that, starting to really, really see the fractality of yourself and where you extend to and where you begin and where you end, and realizing you don't, just like that fractal, you keep going and going and going and going. And that's, that's where our awareness is going. It's expanding from the point of perception infinitely. So, that could either pull us out or reel us in realization of all our relations. It's all our relations, and the health of our ultimate relationship. Oh, that's beautiful.
Isn't that pretty? These are the Starseed Oracle by Rebecca Campbell and Danielle Noel. And this is the
I'm seeing also a parallel between how we treat our bodies and how we think of our bodies and how we treat the earth. And that's part of the maturity that we're going to come into. And, and in some ways there are forces, you could say external forces, that want to force us into a realization of sustainability and use that as a tool for again, force and domination. And is that actually creating true sustainability, or is it just an external representation of something that isn't fully fractal? And this goes into another topic, and we could probably do a whole video about this on alone. And and I think we actually should.
I think you're right, because I just went into so many different layers, because I'm seeing it. I mean, there's so many things that just popped into my head about what you're saying.
So we're going to do a DNA one, and then we're going to do an earth one, which I'm seeing is so connected to one another.
Yeah. And sustainability. And then to add to that too, I love this. I just wanted to share, because I know that you're really into the Aboriginal, like I am, but this talks about ley lines. And that's another topic entirely. But in Australian Aboriginal culture, song lines were the paths traveled by the creator beings as they made the land and sea during the dreaming. Guess what Pisces is?
Oh, so beautiful.
This is the dreamer. So now I'm seeing the connection. So I was like, how do these cards all connect? Right? Well, obviously water, but this is the activated earth card. This isn't the water card. So These paths were recorded in the traditional songs and dances of the people.
Mm.
Ah,
Oh, okay. Those are fractal fields that have been propagated that we continually tap into, you and I.
mhm.
I will be singing songs that come out of nowhere all day long, chanting. Those are live fields, live wires, live lines.
Yeah.
Immortal. They're immortal lines.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's almost like when I was seeing that version of past, present, and future, right? So we are essentially, oh, that's a whole other video. But yeah, so they are, right? How many times have we said that? These paths are recorded in the traditional song, allowing them to access information about the land's history and to travel safely across great distances. Many believe that we visit such sacred points on earth. Sometimes something is active when we visit them, something is activated within us. Some also believe that by connecting with the land with devotion at these sacred places, something is activated within the planet also. And this, as you connect with the earth and honor its keepers, the land opens up more fully to you. The fruits provide more nourishment and the guardians watch over you. And so the prayer on here, the starseed activation says, I honor and thank the keepers of the earth beneath me, known and unknown. Thank you for your nourishment and tender holding. Oh,
Beautiful.
at the heart. So that asks us to come back to that feeling supported, trusting, connecting to the earth, because we are part of the earth. And so we tend to think when we're rejuvenating, when we're restoring and rebuilding our battery, that requires us to plug in to the dirt, to nourish ourselves with fruits and vegetables, to nourish ourselves with water. And that is a representation of what we are doing with our body.
Beautiful.
So, shall we end there? Anything else you'd like to add? I mean,
I won't go there. That feels complete.
right. So I'll just maybe stay just for a second. I just want to say thanks to everyone who's shared in this moment with us, and a little bit long of a moment, but thank you. We appreciate you and love you. And thank you, Kandice, as always.
My pleasure.
To be continued. I'm just going to hit end. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in love and light, in as love and light. Namaste. I'm just going to hit pause.